Hi, you're listening to the Connect Your Health to Life coaching podcast. I'm your host, Selfessly. I am a self-image coach and empowerment coach with a decade-long background in working in the health, fitness, and nutrition industry. If you're anything like I was, or the way that my clients currently are, then you might be struggling with body image issues, self-image issues, or issues with confidence. You might be trying to figure out why you can't take the ideas that you have for living your healthiest and most fulfilling life and turn them into lifelong actions. So join me in this podcast as we dive in deep on topics of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. We're going to look from the perspective of an authentic and empowering mindset, and from self-awareness, self-love, and of course, how we can start taking authentic self-action towards living that healthy and fulfilling life that you know you're here to live. I'm going to bust through some of the illusions and myths that we've all been taught to believe along the way and offer you confidence and clarity. I'm so excited to have you on this journey with me. So the only question is, are you ready to find out how you can start living your most authentic and fulfilling life once and for all? Then let's get started, shall we? Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. For those of you joining for the first time, welcome. So we have a very, very fascinating topic today, and it's one that I love to talk about with people and with my clients, and it's probably also one of the biggest struggle points that my clients face, that I faced personally in my life, and that I see most people in the world struggling with. And it's because it sort of plays into our people-pleasing nature, which is another huge thing that I'm fairly certain about 100% of the people on this planet struggle with in their lifetime. So that's an issue that I tackle with my clients. But this issue that we're going to talk about today, it's one that people come up with a lot of resistance to seeing in the beginning. We have to sort of peel apart layers of the resistance to this concept because we're so socially ingrained to see this word as always being a bad thing. So my friends, today we're talking about being selfish. But not just any kind of selfish. You see, there's a brand of selfishness that I want you to start wrapping your mind around called selfless selfishness. Okay? So if you've seen the title of the episode today, it's called Selfessly Selfish. So we're going to talk today about how to do that, and even what the hell is that, Seth? Because I know a lot of you were thinking that. How can you be selflessly selfish? Aren't those like antonyms of each other? I would say that according to most people's definition of the word selfish, yes, selfless is the opposite of selfish. But I'm going to present to you a way to think about selfishness today in a way where they actually work with each other and are actually necessary for each other. Okay? So, let's get started by getting a clear view on what selfishness is. So I went to Google, of course, because that's all of our second brain, right? And I looked up the definition of the word selfish. And there are so many definitions, by the way. I know that we think that every word has its one definition, but no, so many people have so many opinions about the definition of words too. So there are a lot of definitions for the word selfish, and I picked the ones that I felt were most understandable and also that portrayed the real perception of selfishness. So, definition. Concerned primarily with one's own interests, benefits, welfare, etc., regardless of others. Placing one's needs or interests before others. Okay? So that's the definition of selfish. Now, I want to look up the word regard, because the word regard was used here as well. Regard means to look upon, to think of with a particular feeling, to pay attention to, or to gaze upon. So, selfishness basically means to put one's own interests, welfare, and well-being and benefits as a priority without looking upon or paying attention to other people's thoughts, opinions, or feelings. That's what the word selfish means, okay? So I can see how immediately some people will wince at this idea of doing this as a good thing. Because even this definition can somehow bring up some very negative feelings. I feel them too sometimes when I look at the word and I think about this definition. And I have to remind myself of all of the things that I've uncovered about this selfish thing. I resisted this idea of being selfish as a good thing for such a long time. And I resisted the idea that being selfish is the most selfless thing that I can actually do. And I think this has a lot to do with how I was socially programmed, that selfishness came up with so much negative internal examples of selfishness that I could think of. But then when I thought about this a bit deeper and I asked this belief some questions, I started seeing that there were some bullet holes in this seemingly bulletproof facade of the belief that being selfish is just bad. And I started to think about how most of the things, when taken to extreme in life, or coming from a space of fear or scarcity, they can become very destructive. So if I can see that, then maybe this also applies to selfishness. So I thought about this concept of selfishness a lot, and this concept of that anything taken to an extreme can make it destructive. And I thought about what it really means for someone to be selfish. And I tried to reach, and this is a technique that I teach my clients, I teach people to pass through neutrality before looking at, the thought model, which we'll talk about again here in a little bit. I know you guys love to hear about the thought model, right? So I spent a lot of time with this concept of being selfish and tried to bring myself to a space of neutrality in my thoughts about selfishness. And once I could reach neutrality around the term selfishness, meaning I didn't have any emotional attachment to the word, and then I came to a space of neutrality around how acting selfish doesn't have to mean something bad. When I was able to get to that space, I then opened myself up to this idea of how it might show up in a person's life who is coming from love, coming from abundance, and coming from enoughness, meaning I know that I am enough, or this person knows that they are enough. And I realized something. Being selfish does not have to be bad. And in fact, can be the most selfless thing that we can do. Not just a selfless thing, the most selfless thing that we can do. So stick with me here, because this is going to be a bit of a stretch for a lot of you, because trust me, I asked the internet this week. It's going to be hard to stretch and grasp this at first. So give yourself some understanding and compassion here. I don't expect you to fully grasp this and embrace this with just open arms and acceptance. Question it for a little bit. Spend some time with the concept, because it took me some time to really wrap my brain around this idea as well. And so I don't expect you all to arrive at just believing this overnight, or even over a week, or maybe even over a year. It depends on how strong your feelings are with the word selfishness. Some of my clients, we work on this idea of being selfish in a selfless way for a very long time, because they have very strong opinions and ideas about selfishness. So I want you to understand that for me, this has been a constant evolution. It's something that I'm still evolving, okay? It was a choice that I made to continue exploring, and the more I saw how my old beliefs surrounding selfishness were, I figured out how to see selfish as a selfless way to act. So I want to show you that there is a way to act in selfishness that is actually selfless. It was extremely uncomfortable for me to get to this point, so please be clear on that. It wasn't just I woke up one day and I was like, oh, I'm going to look at selfishness, and this feels so great to explore selfishness and the idea that it might not actually be the definition of selfishness that I think. No, it was very uncomfortable for me to get to this point where I am right now. I had to spend a lot of time choosing to be in discomfort of thinking, what if selfish is actually the most selfless thing that we can do? What would this mean? What would it change about how I look at life? What will it change about how I act towards other people? And then, of course, but what will everyone think of me? And this question threw up a huge red flag, because it was people-pleasing alert. And I knew then when the question came up of what will everyone think of me, I knew I wanted to explore this change. Because I know that when my people-pleasing nature is activated, that I'm only doing things at the expense of those around me and not truly believing in my worth. And when I do not truly believe that my worth is unconditional, then my worth and everyone else's worth becomes conditional to me. And that is not a space where I choose to live. That is not a space where I want to choose to live. So, why do we really even care if someone else thinks that we are being selfish? That's a tough question to answer, isn't it? It's a tough one because it hits like right in the chest. You can feel it. Why do we really care? And so many things come up like, but what about? Okay, so the truth is that we're all able to be selfish. And we can do it in a selfless way because what we are really wanting to do is contribute. But you see, the thing is, we have nothing to contribute or give if we do not make sure that our needs are met first. But we're stuck in this people-pleasing trap of looking to others to define for us what we refuse to believe about ourselves. So we do not choose this selfless selfishness that I'm going to talk about today to meet your needs first. And on top of that, when people are acting selfish in a very selfish motivated way, it really becomes a brand in our head of selfishness that serves no one. And so we're almost afraid to be selfish because not only are we afraid of what other people will think, but it's also because of how we look at the word selfishness. I believe this is why there are also so many of these quote-unquote self-sacrificing people out there that get upset when other people do not self-sacrifice. Okay, there's this idea of selflessness that means we have to sacrifice our own needs to be selfless. And there are a lot of people out there that believe that this is the best way to live. And they get so upset when other people don't do the same amount as them. Because the truth is that they are doing this self-sacrificing with the expectations that others will see their self-sacrifice. And that they will therefore acknowledge that it's a sacrifice, and then appreciate that sacrifice, and appreciate enough so that they will then choose to sacrifice themselves in return to meet the needs of the person who made the first sacrifice. But then when no one does, they get really resentful. Because now they're depleted because they sacrificed themselves at their own expense, and they're unwilling to fill their own cup, because filling their own cup would mean being selfish, and no one will sacrifice their needs to fill their cup for them, like they did. And so this cycle creates so much emotional manipulation, so much dishonesty in relationships and in the world. I see so many people out there living in these relationships that are so dishonest and emotionally manipulative because it's this idea of self-sacrifice and selflessness and give to your friend because they'll have to see your goodness and then give back. And what if there was a way that we could give from a space of abundance that wasn't sacrificing, that didn't come with a price tag to the person giving or to the person receiving? What if instead it came with love and energy and actually energized the giver and the person receiving? And in the end, there was nothing expected for the giving. Let's talk about how that can happen, because that's the brand of selfless selfishness that I want to talk about. So, I want to look at what most people see as being selfish. I asked my social media peeps this week to define selfishness for me in their own words. And most of the definitions were so full of this intense feeling of not enoughness and victimhood. And by victimhood, I mean like something else is what creates for us, like we are not in charge of our life. So I felt more compelled to create some clarity around this topic because I noticed the amount of not enoughness and victimhood surrounding this word, and that is something that I really want there to be less of in this world, is this not enoughness, this victimhood in our lives. There are so many people out there who are hurting in their life because their view of what it means to be selfish, and then seeing that self-care as selfish, like what true self-care is, they see that as being selfish. And so they neglect their self-care. So I give you full permission. If you don't like using the word selfish, then let's just replace it with the word self-care. Okay? If the word selfish has so much intensity in it for you, then replace the word with self-care. But it's the same thing. It's putting our needs first. So a lot of the definitions that I got when I asked for people to define selfishness for me were about someone doing things to get ahead or to make an advantage for themselves that hurt other people, or that made other people feel something hurtful or bad, or because someone did something without considering other people's feelings that it hurt their feelings. So these were the majority of the definitions that I got. So, first thing that I want to address here, my friends, go back and listen to every episode that I've introduced the thought model in, because remember one thing that is so important to remember. No one or nothing can make you feel anything. Remember that our feelings come from a thought that we have about what someone else is doing. The other person is not in charge of that thought. You are. And there are a lot of reasons why someone might take an action without taking the time to consider everyone's thoughts or feelings about it. Okay, there are a lot of reasons. And we can believe that some of those reasons are good and some of those reasons are bad. But that is a choice that we make to believe whether or not their reason is good or bad. But here's the other side of that. It's none of our business. It is not the other person's responsibility to owe us an explanation of why they didn't consider other people's feelings, or if they did, okay? Or why it is that we felt like they didn't consider other people's feelings. It's not that person's responsibility to explain that to us. That is our perception. And we need to be really clear about that. That is so important to clarify. And this is not to feel guilt or shame. This is because it gives you your power back to recognize, hey, wait, I'm the one creating this reaction right here. I'm the one creating this resentment. I'm the one choosing to think that this person didn't consider everyone else's feelings, and that's what's feeling bad right now. I don't actually know whether or not this person considered my feelings. Maybe they did, and this was still the best way that they could come up with to behave. And there could be a million reasons that I don't understand that are going on behind the scenes that would cause them to behave this way and consider or not consider my feelings. And some of those I might consider to be good or bad reasons, but that's not my business because I wasn't the one that took the action. It's their business as to whether or not they think their reason is good or bad. We have to get out of other people's heads and trying to manage their thinking or why they did what they did, and recognize that our feelings come from us. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to like the other person's behavior or just accept it and say, okay, well, oh well, but it's at the same time we have to recognize our feelings about it are about our thoughts. So instead, maybe ask, why would a person ask in this way if this is the best that they could do? Why would a person act in this way? What is it that they're trying to get? How can I make sure that this person feels that so maybe they don't have to act in this way in the future to, then I have these thoughts about it and feel this way about it? These are questions we can ask ourselves and really get honest and understand we don't know the full picture, nor do we have to. Stop wasting your time trying to figure out everyone's thoughts and feelings and motivations. So, if you feel bad when someone else does something, it is because you are thinking something about what they are doing that makes you feel bad. And I know it sounds crazy to wrap your mind around because this is the opposite of what we've been taught. Did Sally hurt your feelings? Oh, did them picking on you hurt your feelings? We're taught this from such a young age, so I know it feels crazy to wrap your mind around this, and it will take some time to let it really sink in and believe it. I know that. It's okay that it does. Okay? And I know there are a lot of hurting people in this world that are doing things and saying things and trying to manipulate other people's feelings in a way that suggests that they are better than other people. And they do things and request things at the expense of other people's well-being. But here is the thing here. It is the person who is being expected to give at their expenses responsibility to recognize that this request is one coming from a truly selfishly selfish place, and to say no. To say no, full stop. No is a full sentence. But what the other person does or requests does not make you feel anything. That is such an important distinction to make. Your own thoughts about that behavior or the demand or the request is what creates all of your feelings here. And so you are the one responsible to recognize that. Offer compassion and love to yourself and then to the other person because you recognize that their behavior or their request is coming from a deep space of scarcity, fear, and not enoughness. And you can still say no to the request. You do not owe this person your time and energy, but you don't have to do it from a space of hate. You can do it from a space of love and compassion and just say no, walk away, take your power back. Okay, so for now, what is important is to recognize this distinction that another person's behavior does not make you feel anything. Same goes with yours. Your behavior cannot make another person feel something. Okay? And this is not to say that you are not allowed to have thoughts about the other person's behavior that hurt your feelings. You are allowed to have those thoughts if you want to. But recognize that they are your thoughts about it and recognize that you are choosing them. Give yourself that power back. And if you don't want to keep choosing them, guess what? You have the power to stop choosing them. But for right now, if you want to choose them and recognize that. I am feeling this way because I am choosing to think this about what this person did. Okay? Now, most of you, when you thought about someone being selfish, you had this image in your mind of a person who is just like acting a fool or doing something that put other people in danger, or they were saying things with this intention of getting an emotional reaction from people, making demands or requests for serving their needs at the expense of other people's needs. Okay? So this is the view of selfishness that then causes our people-pleasing nature to come out and want to keep giving at the expense of ourselves and those around us and quote-unquote self-sacrifice because of our fear of someone else thinking that we might be selfish. So we have this really ugly definition or view of what a selfish person looks like. And because of our people-pleasing nature, we will give at our own expense because Lord forbid someone think that we are that version of selfish. And so this creates a lot of lying and untruth and resentment in ourselves and in our relationships. And what I want to offer you today is that there is a way to look at selfish where when someone says, but aren't you being a bit selfish? You can say, yes. Yes, I am. And you can be too. You can do it with love and you can do it with confidence and without feeling bad about yourself. That's the brand of selfishness that I want to introduce you to today. So, first of all, what I am talking about when I refer to selflessly selfish and not caring about what other people think. I am not asking you to do this at the expense of others, okay? I don't want you to do that. Secondly, I need you to recognize that this behavior of not caring what other people think with the intention of it being at the other person's expense, or without regard to the fact that it is at other people's expense, this form of selfishness comes from a deep space of hurt and not enoughness, and this is not the space that we are coming from. And this is a space of not enoughness that comes from people creating this within themselves by not meeting their needs first and thinking that they have to constantly look out there and give to get other people's approval to get enoughness. And what I want to offer you is that enoughness comes from inside. Nobody else can make you feel like you are ever enough. You have to do that for yourself. The selfless selfishness that I'm talking about is the selfishness that comes from a deep well of abundance, love, and enoughness because you chose to see your own worth and give yourself the regard and acceptance and approval that you wanted first, so that then you can show up in a way that genuinely contributes from a heart that is full and overflowing with love, acceptance, and enoughness, because we are creating that within ourselves. This is so important to understand. It is never at the expense of other people, but it is without regard to what they might choose to think or feel about your behavior. It is without regard to that, because that is about them and their model of the world and how they are choosing to think and see the behavior. We can see someone who we think is entirely selfless in their actions, and someone else can look at that and think that it's selfish and a bad behavior. So does that then make the person that we see as being selfless being a selfish person? Okay, see, this is all based on perception. So it is without regard to what other people might choose to think or feel about your behavior, because in the end, you have to choose the behavior that works best for you and your values and trust that you are a good person and that you're not out there to just be evil and put evil into the world, and that in the end you have to choose the behavior that's right for you, and understand that there will always be someone who hates it. There will always be someone who doesn't like it, and it might be someone close to you, and that's okay. You don't have to hate the other person for not liking it. You don't have to hate yourself for them not liking it. Okay? So it will never be at the expense of another person, but it is without regard to what they might choose to think or feel about your behavior. Because you know your truth, and you know that it is that you want to contribute, that you want to genuinely come from a selfless place of abundance and love. And that is your motivation for choosing selfishness now. This distinction is very key. There is a space between self-sacrifice, which is giving at our expense, and it's not authentic. There's a space between that and selfish selfishness, in which selfless and selfish meet in a very beautiful way, and in a way that is genuine and true and abundant, and everyone has their needs met from that space. Everyone is fulfilled. And the more of us coming from this space, the less suffering we're going to see in this world, the less of the selfish selfishness we will see in this world. Now, I know that when we think of choosing to be selfish, we think of things that we're currently doing for people, like, giving our time to people, doing things for people as favors. And I know a lot of people think that they do this from the goodness of their heart, but I promise you, if you take a closer look at this, it's coming with a selfish motivation that we're going to get to later. So I know that it feels like, for some of you, that prioritizing yourself and being selfish in that way of prioritizing your needs to make sure your cup is filled, it means that you will have to withdraw some of that stuff that you've been giving to people. And I know that it feels like when you take stuff back that you've been giving to people for so long, for instance, doing the laundry for your whole family, making everyone's beds, doing all the dishes all of the time, showing up to everyone's fundraisers, saying yes to everyone asking for help to do yard work, things like this, things that we always have done and we've offered to people over and over and over again. We feel like taking those things back when we choose to do that it's coming at the other person's expense. That the people that we've been giving these things to, when we take them back, that it's coming at their expense. And what I want to say is this: taking something back that was yours to begin with is never at the other person's expense. Even if they choose thoughts about you and you taking your time or your energy back and make them feel like it is at their expense, it is in fact not. When it becomes at their expense is when you take back your time and energy for your self-care, and then you require of them to give you their time and energy to contribute to your self-care. That is when it is at their expense. But taking something back that is yours, or that was yours to begin with, that you've been giving all of this time, that is never at someone else's expense. I'm asking you to meet your needs here and prioritize them first. Everyone else around you will also have the right to meet their needs and prioritize them first. I'm not asking you to tell them that they can't do it. What I'm asking you to do is to tell them to meet their needs while you meet yours. And that is not at their expense. That is never at their expense. Okay? And I know. There are a lot of moms and dads out there with kids that are going to speak up here against this idea because, I want to be very clear here. I'm not asking you to neglect your kids, because I know that kids are not capable of meeting all of their needs yet. And as mothers and fathers, it's our job, or your job, because I'm not a mother or father. I'm a puppy daddy. But I know that it is the job of a parent to show children how to meet their own needs eventually when they're physically and emotionally capable. But here's the thing: if you're not meeting your own needs, you're not showing them how. Because you lead by example, not by words. Okay? What I'm asking you to do here is to be honest with yourself about how much time you need to be sure that your needs are met first. And then, from that space, be honest with your kids, yourself, your spouse, if you're married, or if you're a single parent with yourself and your kids, and maybe you have some friends or parents that can help, about how much you are truly able to help them with your current state of self-care, and how much help you need from them to help themselves, so that you can then teach them how to help themselves as much as they can. And if you're married, how much you need from your spouse to also contribute in taking care of the kids while also making sure that both of your needs are met. But if you're a single mom or dad, maybe it's being honest with yourself about needing a parent or a babysitter to regularly take care of your kids' needs for you at a scheduled time so that then you have time to meet your needs. And I know this gets resistance because people think that makes you a bad parent because you're not spending all of your time with your kids. But I promise you, if you spend all of your time with your kids and neglect your self-care, the version of a bad parent that you're afraid of being, you're being that. Because you're giving an example to your kids to wear themselves out at their own expense to meet other people's needs before making sure that their needs are met. You're not teaching them to meet their own needs. So then they will become codependent people in life. You don't want to teach them that. I know you don't. Okay? So this is the best way to make sure your kids' needs are met. And maybe this might mean having someone else who already has their needs met to contribute time to help meet the kids' needs, such as a babysitter, a daycare, a grandparent, an aunt, a friend, anything like that. If your kids are old enough, maybe it's setting them in front of a TV show for a little bit while you go do some meditation. To tend to your child's needs until your needs are at neglect does not help your kids in any way. I promise you it doesn't. I come across so many mothers and fathers who are exhausted, resentful, and tired. They're grouchy, and it's not helpful for themselves or their children, if we're truly being honest. The children feel that resentment. They feel the frustration. They feel the having to do things to meet their needs because you're depleted and tired and don't really want to. They feel your impatience. They feel your edginess when you snap and get annoyed very quickly with their needs because you are drained. And this doesn't make you a bad person. This means it is a red flag that your needs are not being met. Slow down. Ask for help from someone who their needs are met, and take the time to meet your needs here. And here's the thing. I know this because I've done so much inner child work with myself and so many other adults. When you are on this edginess, this feeling of frustration, resentment, depletedness, when you snap, and when you're truly on the inside coming from the space of I have to do these things to meet my kids' needs, but I don't really have the energy to do it, so I don't want to do it, but I have to, they feel that, and usually the child will make it mean something bad about them when they observe this. Because they don't understand the complexity yet of the emotional battle of self-care, and because you haven't taught them yet that they are in charge of their own feelings, just like you're in charge of yours, which is why you're neglecting your needs, because you're afraid of feeling like you're being selfish in a bad way when you're the one in charge of that, and choosing to see that your self-care does not make you selfish in a bad way. They don't understand the complexity of the emotional battle of self-care and people-pleasing, and why you're not taking care of yourself. So they will make it mean something bad about them. Trust me. I've seen so many adults that have such low self-worth, such a horrible self-image because of things that when their parents were in charge of them, because they were depleted and tired and snapped on them and yelled at them. It wasn't because they were bad parents. It was because they were neglecting their own needs and sacrificing their needs and not making sure their needs were met. And so they showed up as tired, frustrated, depleted, and parents that didn't know how to show love because they didn't know how to love themselves first. And what I'm saying is to break this cycle and not have your kids then have that same model and grow up thinking the same things about themselves, you have to set the example now of putting your self-care first and teaching them that this is not a bad thing. And it doesn't mean something bad about them, that you love them. And it's because you love them that you love yourself. And actually, it's because you love yourself that you're able to love them unconditionally. Teach them that process by being an example of it. I want you to think about this analogy. If you had a heart surgery scheduled, and your heart surgeon decided that because he didn't want to disappoint all of the other patients that wanted heart surgery, that they stayed up all night, all week, 24/7, the week before your surgery, to do all of the surgeries with all the patients that wanted their time. So by the time that surgeon gets to you, do you want them operating on you? I know I personally wouldn't at all. I want my surgeon to have met their needs to the fullest. I hope they had an effing spa day before they came to do my heart surgery. I hope they are so relaxed, so fulfilled, so full of love for themselves when they start performing surgery on me. I want you to think about that. Because raising kids is by far more complex than open heart surgery. I don't have kids of my own, but I have plenty of mom friends and dad friends, and I've heard the stories. I have plenty of mom and dad clients. I've heard the stories. I know it is more complex than heart surgery. And I'm sure it's even more complex than what I understand from hearing their experiences. So yes, moms and dads, you do absolutely, for your children, need to make sure that your needs are met first. It's not at their expense. It is for them. Remember that you are modeling for your kids and how you act, not what you say. So show them how to love themselves by loving yourself. I can't even begin to describe to you the number of moms and dads that I meet that are full of resentment and fatigue and feel depleted in their responsibility for their kids. They are so overwhelmed and neglecting themselves to try and be a good mom or a good dad. And if this is you, I promise you, you are not being a better parent by working yourself into the ground like this. And I know it feels hard, but this is only because you haven't practiced it enough and gotten into the rhythm of finding the methods that work for you and your kids of how to meet your needs first and then show up as that most fulfilled and loving version of yourself to then love your kids and fulfill them and teach them how to do this for themselves and teach them how to meet their own needs the way you do it. And then meeting their needs while they can't yet, with so much love. Permission granted, you are welcome. Go be selflessly selfish as a parent. And watch your kids learn how to show up in the world in that same way. With that same abundance, that same overflowing cup, because their needs are met first too. So I'm not asking you to see yourself as more important than anyone, moms or dads or anyone else, okay? You're not more important than your kids. You're not more important than anyone around you, your friends. I'm not asking you to see that. I'm actually asking you to see that there is equal importance to everyone in the world, yourself and everyone around you. And that having your needs met means that you have more to give and more to contribute, which is in your nature. Which is why we are doing it at our expense now, is because we have this nature to want to contribute, but we don't know that we have to make sure that our needs are met first. Okay? This desire to give and contribute doesn't go away when your needs are met. In fact, what I find and see is that it increases in such a beautiful way. And I know some people will argue with you about this when you say no, and that they're going to disagree with you about this being your truth, and that it is not a genuine yes for you. And they're going to say things. They're going to say things that sound very convincing. They might say something like, you should want to help me instead of just doing whatever it is that you want to do. And this argument feels very strong and very valid. Because when we think just doing whatever I want to do, we again get that very negative image of a person that's doing everything at everyone else's expense and expecting other people to give of themselves for them to meet their needs. We have that image in our head. So when someone says this, it sounds like, oh yeah, you're right, I should probably give to you. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this argument apart for a second here because it's very illogical. So let's diffuse it here. This person is asking you to neglect your needs to meet theirs. And then telling you that you are selfish because you are not wanting to neglect your needs to meet theirs. Think about that. So who is actually being selfish here? The person asking for their needs to be met at your expense is the one being selfishly selfish. You're saying no because you want to meet your needs first so that then you can turn around and contribute and give to your friends in a way that is selfless. So saying no to them isn't the selfish thing. Them requesting of you to give at your expense is the selfish thing in the selfish way, not in the selfless way. I need you to really see that. And you saying yes would be a lie and would only be to people please them, which then comes with a price tag that is truly selfishly selfish. I would say that you saying no is not the true act of selfishness here. And that the other person thinking that you're selfish because you're not meeting their needs at your expense, that's the space of selfishness that we don't want to come from. So here's another argument you might hear. Oh, but it's for a good cause. And this could be true. It might be a cause that you believe is a good cause. It might be a cause that you don't believe is a good cause, but you're afraid to tell the other person that because, Lord forbid, they think you're a bad person or selfish, right? But it may be a good cause. It might be a cause that you genuinely want to contribute to. That's okay. That doesn't mean you have to say yes. This argument gets a lot of us because it has a truth to it. The charity or the event or the help may be for a cause that you feel is good because it aligns with your values and who you are. But here is the thing. If you're depleted, you're giving from a space of lack and a space of selfishness. So if it is a value of yours and you want to give to that cause, then you will give to it whenever your needs have truly been met and you're there and ready to truly contribute and give in a way that is selfless. But doing it simply because someone asked you to do it, and then you feel guilty to say no because of your fear of what the other person will think, this is not giving from a true space of generosity. In this case, you are giving to absolve your feelings of guilt. Because again, you feel like not giving at your own expense is being selfish. So your giving is really just you trying to get the other person to think better of you. So I want you to ask, is this truly selfish or selfless in giving then? Because I would say it's not. I see this happen a lot around Christmas time, and this happened actually with my husband and me this past Christmas. These charity workers that stand outside of stores and use fear and guilt tactics to get people that are busy shopping to give to their cause. And a lot of these causes are ones that we would genuinely want to give to. And my husband and I almost fell into this trap. This person was standing outside and being like, oh, come on, you have a second to give. Look, you're going into a grocery store. You have money to buy groceries. Shouldn't you be contributing to other people having money? And I was like, wait. Hold on. Because we really wanted to give to this person because we do want to make sure that other people around Christmas time have food and money to buy presents. But here's the thing. I was like, if we truly want to give to this charity, we will. But let's do it at home, on our own terms, in a way that feels genuine for us, not because someone is standing here outside of a grocery store and said something that then we thought made us feel selfish for having money for groceries when others don't. So we should give. When that should word comes up, that should automatically be a red flag. It is a red flag. So I was like, let's go home and explore this idea. So we went home, we explored the idea of giving. Then we explored how much we could genuinely give without it coming at our expense. You know, we can still buy our groceries, we can still have everything that we need met here. How much can we genuinely give from that space? And here's the thing, how much we were able to give when we truly looked at it was so much more than we would have given this person from guilt standing out in front of the store. So we decided on an amount. And then we decided on a charity that we genuinely felt aligned with our values and that would use our money in a way that really served a cause that contributed and shared of our values and made them more abundant in the world. And we gave anonymously to that charity. And we gave an amount of money that was true for us, that was genuine for us, in giving a contribution that came with zero price tag, zero guilt. And it felt so truly amazing. Not the same as giving from this guilt outside of a store because someone said something to me and then I chose to think that I was being selfish for not giving. It felt so good. So good to know that these people would never know where this money came from. They would never feel guilt or shame about receiving this money. They would never feel that there was an expectation of them. They would just wake up and all of a sudden have money there to buy groceries. Have money for shelter, have money for clothes. It just felt so good to give from that space. And we made sure that our needs were met first. We made sure we still had enough money to meet all of our needs. And even from that space, we wanted to contribute. And because we had taken so much time to look at our needs and how well we were able to meet them, we were able to contribute in such a huge and abundant way that we wouldn't have if we had come from the space of guilt standing outside the grocery store. So what I want you to really take from this is the difference between genuine giving and giving from guilt and not enoughness, of not choosing to believe that I am a good person and therefore I feel like I have to give. Because someone outside of the grocery store said something that then I chose to feel guilty about the fact that I have money for groceries. Because instead I chose to be like, hold on, I know I'm giving, and I know I will give, and that when I do give, it will come from love and abundance, not from guilt and shame. So, I want you to reframe the word selfish in your mind. Think of it as self-care. And selfish in a way that serves you and everyone around you. Because so many of us are so deeply programmed to be people pleasers and to worry about what other people will think of us. We have been doing everything in our life in an attempt to please everyone around us and get their approval at our expense. We're all so busy doing that. We're all guilty of it. I did it for so long. I still catch myself wanting to do it sometimes. And guys, if you hear that noise in the background, they're sawing something downstairs. I don't know what it is. Okay, so here's the other thing. So many of the people that I talk to, they're so depleted that if they ever wanted to heal and start living from that space of love and abundance, they would need to choose to be selflessly selfish for a period of time. And it's almost like they're afraid that once their needs are met, and that if they take that much time to meet their needs, that they won't want to contribute, and that they'll become this greedy, self-centered person who just thinks, or just takes and takes and takes and takes and takes, and never gives from abundance. And I want to say this. Most people, and I would actually lean more towards saying all people, but for the sake of argument here, most people, when their needs are genuinely met in an abundant, loving, and in an I am enough way, they already have this innate nature to contribute. That's why you're wanting to do it at your expense right now, because your people-pleasing nature and your contributing nature are getting confused with each other. And I promise you, it will still be there even after your needs are met. I promise. And in fact, you will have something to genuinely give and so much more. And you will want to give so much more. So why do we need to be selfish to heal? And to be able to truly give love and live an abundant and empowered life? And the truth is, it's because you all, including myself, have been pouring from empty cups for so long. You're so used to feeling this serving being the same as self-sacrificing that comes from the space of resentment and not enoughness and wanting to please others that you have forgotten that serving is in your nature. But what you are doing now isn't serving because it is coming from those spaces, because you're not meeting your needs first. It is actually being selfish. Your serving now from an empty cup is being selfish in a way that is at the expense of others. And I want to explain that here. And I want you to listen with love and compassion for yourself, because I know this illusion is strong, and I know you've been taught this your entire life, so I don't want you to feel guilt or shame about the fact that you've been doing this, because we're all doing it, my friends. We're all doing it. So I just want you to see this clearly and get your power back here. Okay? I'm going to show you how the way you're giving now is actually against your nature and values, and this is why it feels so bad. When someone asks you to do something to help them, or as a favor, and you do not genuinely want to do it, I want you to ask yourself something. Are you wanting to do this, or are you afraid of their opinion of you if you admit to not wanting to do it? So what you want, actually, in this case, is for the other person to believe that you want to do this for them because you think it makes you a good person. Really think about that the next time someone asks you for a favor and you think you want to do it. Think about that. Why is it that I want to do it? Is it because I want this person to think a certain something about me? So someone asks you to do something, and you genuinely do not want to do it, but you tell them yes. Why are you not telling them your truth, that you don't want to do it? Why is lying acceptable here? You see, this is another reason why this giving hurts and it doesn't feel good, is because we're lying, and we know it. I know for me, the reason I lied is because I was afraid of what the other person would think of me. Maybe they would think I was not a good friend. Maybe they would think I wasn't helpful, or that I wasn't useful, or that I'm selfish. And I so badly did not want them to think about me in that way, this, arrogant person who does things at other people's expense, because that was my definition of selfish. And I didn't want them to think about me this way because I didn't want to feel that way about myself, and I believed that I needed them to think the way that I wanted to feel about myself in order for me to feel that way. So I would say yes, because I was hoping that by me saying yes, this person would instead think all of the things about me that I wanted them to think. That I'm a good friend, that I'm kind, that I'm helpful, that I'm selfless. But here's the thing. I was only saying yes when I wanted to say no, because I wanted the other person to think something about me. I did this thing because I wanted to believe that the other person thought something about me that then gave me permission to feel a certain way about me. Which perpetuated this idea that in order for me to believe that I am good, I have to have other people believe that I'm good enough, that I then provide enough proof to myself that I can then believe that I'm good. So in reality, my saying yes was because it was all about me. I was wanting people to believe that I was selfless, when in reality, everything I did was 100% about me and trying to get approval from other people so that I could feel a certain way about myself, that I was not willing to just feel about myself. So here's the other aspect to this. When I say yes to something like this, when I want to say no, I'm doing this thing with an expectation that my friend will be grateful, or whoever it is that I'm doing it for will be grateful, that they will think highly of me, that they will make me feel what I want to feel about me for doing it. So my selfless help comes at a cost for my friend, because they now have to pay the price of making me feel that they feel a certain way about me for my help. And if I do not feel that way about myself that I am wanting to feel, then I will be resentful towards them for not making me feel that, because I gave them the responsibility of making me feel good about myself when I said yes. So when I do not feel good about myself after doing these things that I didn't want to do in the first place, then I begin to have thoughts about my friend or the person that I helped that don't feel well for me. And so then I will think negatively about them. So then my help in this situation came at a huge expense. It came at a huge expense. And this is the definition of selfish that we're all wanting to avoid, doing things at other people's expense. When we say yes in a way that is not genuine, my friends, you are doing it at their expense. A lot of times, what we see as serving and helping others and being selfless is actually the definition of selfish that we say we want to avoid by not choosing to meet our needs first. You see, here's the thing I noticed about giving. When we truly give our time from a space of love and abundance because our needs are entirely met, there's no expectation of anything in return. We do not need to feel appreciated by the other person. We do not expect to see, hear, or feel gratitude or thanks from the other person or expect anything from that person in return. That's not to say that they can't express it and that we can't feel good when we hear it. But again, when we feel good because we hear it, it's because of our thoughts about what we're hearing. If we don't believe that they're actually grateful, it doesn't feel good. So again, it's about our thoughts. So when we give from that space, we do not expect to feel or see or hear anything in return because we're already giving all of that to ourselves. All of those things that we want to hear and feel. You see, so many of us are used to giving this from this strings attached that we've forgotten what it feels like to know ahead of time, I'm enough, I'm loved, I'm appreciated, I'm good, and then to give from that space, and how there's no expectation then. A lack of a thank you wouldn't send you into this seething inner dialogue about how ungrateful the other person is, or send you into this deflated inner dialogue about how obviously you're not good enough and that obviously you need to give more in order to get that gratitude and the thanks so you can feel good enough for yourself. When you give yourself all of that good enoughness, and you give it to you first, then you show up and give in abundance to others, because there is enough. And you know there is enough. There's enough time, there's enough energy, there's enough love, because you have been taking care of your needs first. So your time, your energy, and your love are full and overflowing. And what you give is not coming at your expense, and therefore comes with no strings of expectation attached. So selflessly selfish is about being selfish and putting your needs first. But this is because when your needs are met, you already have a nature to serve and contribute. And when your needs are met, you have something to serve and contribute with that doesn't come with a price tag for the person receiving what you're offering. I noticed that a lot of people do not believe that once their needs are met that they'll want to contribute. And as I said, I promise, you will. You will want to contribute when your needs are met. And I think this fear actually comes from this fact that we are all so deprived and making sure that our needs are met, that it will take some time for us to really get back to where our needs are met and to where our cup is full and overflowing. And most of us don't want to take the time to do that because of the competing desire to people please and our fear of people thinking that we might be selfish for meeting our needs first. So we never do it. So many people are so afraid of what other people will think about them putting their needs first that they don't even dare to do it. And therefore they never truly show up in a way where they're giving and contributing in a way that is true and genuine for them and their desires, their true desires, not the false ones. And this is sad to me, Because giving from that space of true, genuine desire feels so joyful. It feels truly selfless, and it's so energizing. It's so energizing. And instead, so many of us are serving from a space of selfishness and seeking approval and seeking getting ahead of others so that they owe us for us helping them, so that then they have to turn around and validate us. And this kind of giving, it feels heavy. It feels draining. It depletes everything that you are, that you know is good inside of you. And makes it even harder for you to believe that you're a good person because you see your own selfishness in that me, give me. Because you don't want to actually be selflessly selfish in the way where you're like, I'm going to meet my needs first, and then I'm going to show up in a way where I can give you so much. Because I have so much to give. Being selfish becomes selfless, and it becomes the most selfless thing that we can do when we recognize then when I make sure that my needs are met first, I make sure that I feel loved, healthy, taken care of, good, whole, and enough. Then I show up in the world in a way where I can contribute without a single expectation because I've already met all of those expectations for myself. Even if not a single person says or does anything to appreciate what I did, I appreciate it. Giving to this charity at Christmas time, nobody in that charity knew where the money came from. Nobody that money went to from that charity knew that me and my husband gave it to them. And it still energized me. I felt appreciated. Because I knew that my appreciation of myself was what allowed me to give in that way. My appreciation of myself and my showing up for myself and taking care of myself made sure that I had enough money in my checking account that me and my husband can say, oh, we have all this money sitting over here. We could give this to the charity and we wouldn't miss it. Why? What? If we genuinely want to give, we can give it here and nobody has to know about it. We just do it. So even if not a single person ever looked at me and said, Seth, I appreciate it, I still appreciated it. I still felt so great about it. Because I've already made sure that I know that I'm good enough and I'm loved. So I can truly say, here, my cup is overflowing. Please fill your cup with this overflow. Take it. Because I have more than I can ever use or need. And guess what? I can make more. Because I've learned how to truly meet my own needs. So when my cup stops overflowing, I just go back. I make more for myself, I meet my needs, and then I show up again with that cup overflowing. It will truly serve you to open yourself up to seeing that when your cup is empty and you believe that it is this honorable and selfless act to give anyways, it is actually you giving because you want to believe that you're a good person. It will never work in making you feel like a good person. It won't. You have to choose to believe you're a good person. And that because you're a good person, you meet your needs first. And then you can give. And you know you're a good person, so you don't need anyone to prove it to you after giving. When you give from the space of an empty cup, instead you build dishonesty. You build resentment in relationships around you. And in the work that you're doing, where you genuinely want to contribute, instead you're giving dishonesty, you're giving resentment, you're giving not enoughness. That's what you're contributing. When you contribute from an empty cup, what you are contributing is a price tag of not enoughness that then you expect someone else to pay for you. We tell ourselves that we're giving because we're good people from this situation, but the truth is that we're giving because we don't believe that we are good people unless we are constantly giving. But there's nothing left in your cup, my friend. It's empty. So all you're really giving is a very expensive price tag to those around you. When you give from an empty cup, you are giving simply because you want other people to think something about you. You are doing something solely for yourself at the expense of others, that they then have to prove that to you. And that, my friend, is the brand of selfishness that serves no one. On the other hand, when you choose to meet your needs first, then you show up and give from this selfless place of wanting to truly contribute without expecting anyone to give anything in return, because you don't need anything in return. You're meeting your needs. They're all met. You are giving from abundance because you have more than you could ever need or use, because you found that endless well. So you know by meeting your needs first, you'll be able to give from this space. When we choose to be selfish and meet our needs first, then in the end, we show up and give in a way that creates more abundance, not more scarcity. We show up in a way that creates more energy for us and those around us, not more depletion and more debt to pay and more not enoughness to be filled. So I know you want to give. I know you do. I know you want to contribute in a real way. Know that for yourself, and then put your needs first so that you can. So that you can show up and do that, my friends. Let's fill the world with those kind of contributions that come from abundance, energy, and love. Okay? I love you all, my friends. I will talk to you again next week. Ciao. Hey, thank you for listening in this week. I hope you enjoyed the content of this episode. If you did, please subscribe or follow this podcast to receive the newest episodes every week as I bring them to you here on the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. Ratings, reviews, and comments are always appreciated. These allow me to know more of what my listeners would like in the podcast and allow for more people who may be searching for a podcast just like this one to find the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. If you would like more information about me and the work that I do with my clients one-on-one, then please visit my website at www.slch.ch. Again, that is www.slch.ch. You can also find me on social media on Instagram at SethLusk_coaching. Again, that is SethLusk_coaching. And on Facebook in my free Facebook group community called A Healthy Life Connection. We would love to have you in the group, and it's only 3 membership questions that you have to answer to join. And again, it's entirely free. And if you need any further information or just want to say hello, feel free to send me an email directly at slusk.health@slch.ch. Again, that is slusk.health@slch.ch. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to our next time together. Ciao.